Hello everyone, welcome back to Morgan Hasn't Seen for the finale of our Kevin Costner series. It also happens to be this month's as voted for video episode, so of course you may be watching this on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. Subscribe and ding your notification bells, of course, if you are. And if you're not, if you're listening as normal on the podcast feed, of course, subscribe if you haven't already. And go on over to YouTube and subscribe and do all that if you haven't already. Let's get all that out of the way to start off with, because I'm actually quite interested in what we're going to be talking about today. The movie's Waterworld. It felt appropriate to be the big finale
Yeah.
of the Costner series, given that, we've been everywhere with Costner in
We
the month
have.
of May. 5 different movies. It's rare-ish we get, 5 movies
Yeah.
on series as well. So it's kind of always nice when we find a series I think we've really, really enjoyed, like we have with this one. And definitely go back and listen to our other Costner episodes if you haven't already, of course.
Yeah.
But this one just felt appropriate for the final. It was at the time the most expensive movie ever
Ever
made.
made, yeah.
It is known as a box office flop, yet may not actually be as
No.
floppy as it's kind of the
Thought
idea
to
of it
be.
would have you believe,
Yeah.
or as it is thought to be. And it's a little bit weird in that sense, really. It almost has a stigma against it that I
Yeah.
feel like maybe it is beating, it is trying to overcome. And I think and I hope today we're going to be talking about Waterworld in the sense that it should be overcoming its stigma as, oh, this ridiculously expensive movie that Costner piled all this money into. And I had
Yeah.
this big argument with Kevin Reynolds. Of course, we've talked about a Kevin Reynolds collaboration of Costner to start off the series. And wasn't
Yeah.
he the Bodyguard's director?
I believe so, and I think he also did Robin Hood with Costner,
I
I wanna
believe he did do
say.
Robin Hood,
So, they've
Prince of
had a
Thieves. Yes.
long working relationship, so very tumultuous on this one considering, the very kind of big spectacle that this film had to be and where it was filmed and all the difficulties with that. So, of course, I think anyone would be under high stress in this kind of filming experience and environment. So,
Yeah, I mean, it took them being forced to be on small rafts in large expanses of water to actually have a bust up of an argument with each other.
yes, but ultimately, I
Um,
think it was Costner's divorce, going through a divorce is what kind
oh,
of
right,
brought them back together because Kevin Reynolds could sympathize, and so he kind of was there for him
right.
during that time, and so that's kind of what made them reconcile after kind of the big fights they had been having working on this movie.
You see,
I think
I just think it's quite sad how I had this image of Waterworld in my head of being almost like a John Carter sort of situation.
yeah.
That it was
Yeah.
gonna be a movie that was very bland, a movie that was very nothing, and just kind of visually looked particularly
Big, but
spectacular and
yeah.
big and lavish and all these kind of stuff. The production design was gonna be great, and let's call it what it is. All that absolutely is great. It's a very unique movie, really.
Yeah.
Waterworld. It's a rare thing to get movies shot this much on open sea and open
Yeah, it
ocean.
sounds terrifying and like a nightmare, and I'm sure it was
Yeah,
from kind of the things I've seen.
I mean that's why it does have the stigma against it,
Yeah.
though, which is unfair. Bold
Yeah.
statement number one is
Yeah.
unfair. I hate that it is on it because it
Yeah.
shouldn't be the movie. is better than just being thought of as,
As this
oh, it was expensive and a
damned
failure.
production. Yeah, because I think the tumultuous production is kind of equated to bad box office for some reason,
Yeah, which is
which
weird,
no,
right?
like, it did make its money back, I do believe, so it wasn't a complete bomb, but it's just the stories of, like, one of the divers who was doubling Costner almost died because he came up too fast. Kevin Costner was, like, strapped to his little boat and, like, ended up sailing off, and they had to, like took him, like, an hour or something to go find him. Um, all kinds of things. So people almost died, people got, sick and all kinds of craziness, and all of that just got lumped into this movie was a big failure and a waste of money kind of thing, when it was really
I
just a terrible production because you're doing it again on open water. That's insane. Like,
yeah,
it's unheard of.
it's just a tough production, and
Yeah.
I think unfortunately when the physical production of a movie itself is kind of more known than the movie, we end
Yeah.
up with a situation like this where people who haven't
Forget.
seen
Yeah.
Waterworld, myself included, obviously
Go
before
into it.
this, go into it thinking it's not going to be a good movie.
Yeah.
When actually it is quite a good movie.
I
It's a
mean,
very
yeah.
interesting movie. It's a very, very watchable movie. Okay, there's nothing overly interesting story-wise going on. It's quite kind of chosen
Straightforward.
one hero-y,
Yeah.
reluctant,
A
gruff
reluctant
lead
hero.
hero.
Yeah.
Um, Again, though, with this kind of chosen one angle to it.
Yeah. They also kind of,
Um,
I think, went into it with the kind of brand on it that this is going to be Mad Max on water kind of thing
which
was their thought. Yeah.
absolutely kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you even have your strange jet ski gang, the smokers,
Yeah.
in this, that are just a biker gang from Mad Max.
Essentially. Yeah.
It is absolutely just Mad
Reluctant
Max on
hero
what.
getting roped into a situation and then ultimately carrying kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and is no better or worse than Mad Max. It isn't. It's the
Yeah.
same kind of thing,
Yeah.
really, isn't it? I suppose there might be a little bit more of a quest element to Waterworld, and I
Mhm.
know obviously it has its longer cut as
Oh, yeah,
well
the
that
Ulysses
we
cut.
didn't watch.
Yes, I believe when we were kind of polling for which movie was going to get this video episode, somebody did mention to us the Ulysses cut, but it's a copy you can't stream anywhere. You'd have to like buy a physical copy of it.
Yeah,
So we
which
didn't get a
by
chance
all
to watch
means.
this, but we did watch some things that kind of talked about the differences, how it expands on things a little bit more, some added scenes in there that kind of change context a little bit with, the Mariner Costner character. So,
Yeah.
I did get at least a little bit of insight in the differences with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I love the idea of a longer version of Waterworld. I must say, maybe it's because everything, okay, does look impressive in how you've made it, but
Mhm.
everything does look the same because you're just dealing with wooden rafts on water
Yeah.
all the time, and you're not quite getting a change of visual. The
Yeah.
visual's great, the visual's impressive, but having, you know, an extra half an hour on to the movie, I think would just drag it
The track,
so much.
yeah.
Not to say I wasn't, I don't think I was feeling dragged by the movie anyway. I think it's paced reasonably well. I just maybe wasn't as captivated by actually what was going on with Costner and the story of this movie that I was in virtually all the other Costner movies we've done.
Okay.
I think I
Okay.
was more gripped by it. I am interested simply, really, and fundamentally in talking about Waterworld now to just say, why is this considered a bad movie? It is absolutely not a bad movie. stop viewing it in this same
In this weird
regard
context. Yeah.
as you view a John Carter or something like that, that
Yeah.
was a massive flop and isn't a very good movie. This is, and
Yeah.
wasn't actually as big a flop as people say it was. It's a weird
Yes.
situation I find
I
myself in, I
mean,
think.
do you feel like Kevin got a little bit lost for you in this one because it was more focused on the world building and the kind of expanse of it all, whereas the other films were kind of more grounded with the
I mean,
characters that he was playing? And that was more the
possi
focus
possibly.
than the world as a whole, like, you're having to build this lore and, this new way of living to your audience, whereas the other, films, these are worlds we know, so we can wholly focus on the character.
I mean, but yeah, okay, it's a fair point to ask that. It's a fair point to say that. But is the Old West in open range a world we actually know?
That's
It's
true,
not.
but I mean, we're not having to set it up. I think we kind of have an idea of what
Yeah.
the Old West looks like based off of other media, but this foreign world of, the ice caps melting and now everyone living on water and these different gangs and why the world is the way it is and how it operates. That is a whole other thing that you have to take time to explain to your audience and get your audience to get into, and then we have the character existing in that world and understand, and also he's like a mutant character as well, so he's not
He
like a
is.
human man. So then we're dealing with the discrimination that this character faces. So that I think is one element that maybe grounds this character in something relatable. But the added element of having to explain a foreign kind of concept of a world to us. Because you said you felt like you didn't get enough kind of with it within kind of knowing the character as the other films we watch. So do you think that is kind of the reason why?
I think it's got more to do with. I don't think it actually has anything to do with the character of the mariner himself. I think it has to do with the story. I just feel the story is rather simple in
Okay.
this movie, and that's fine. It's supposed to be, that it's less focused on that and much more focused on the world itself. And this is an unusual thing for me to be saying anyway. I'm usually somebody that loves getting into a fantasy world more than the story set in that fantasy
Yeah.
world. I just think you need a little bit more of. It was plainly obvious to me, and I don't like thinking like this, but it was just plainly obvious to me exactly where this story was going to go from
Okay.
minute one of the movie.
Okay.
And that's fine, satisfying, makes sense, absolutely. But there wasn't even any tiny little things in there. Okay, maybe the fact that Costner ends up being a Gillman mutant, which is definitely the most interesting part of the entire movie.
Yeah.
And maybe it's also that I don't know, do I find Costner as lovable and likable and wholesome in this movie that I do in other movies, even when he's playing gruff characters? Maybe not. Does that have something to do with the fact that he's trying to be a little bit Mad Max and is in a fantasy world? Possibly, but how many fantasy characters or sci-fi characters in the past, dystopian characters, have we been able to, or have
To
I
get
been able
behind.
to identify with, to get behind? Why am I not completely gripped by this, given that I do very much enjoy Costner? I enjoy Costner in this movie. His character has this unique trait to him where he
Yeah.
has to, yes, as you said, suffer a certain amount of discrimination
Prejudice. Yeah.
and prejudice. It's it's interesting. I am in a very odd little space with
Yeah.
Waterworld.
And I mean, it's also kind of a departure from the Kevin we've built up to really enjoy this kind of all American
Mm,
guy.
That
So
might
the
be it. There's nothing remotely all American about this Kevin Costner, and I don't
No.
know where to put him in my mind. It's
Yes.
confusing me.
Yes. And I mean, there are moments where his character ends up softening because he does get roped into
Sure.
helping a woman and a child. And so we do see him kind of be very gruff with them and not want them around and kind of mean and cold. But when it comes down to it, he ultimately ends up really caring for them. And we have a whole scene where he's teaching the young girl played by Tina Majorino, like how to swim and
Yeah.
they've really bonded, and then he goes through this whole mission to
Quest.
rescue her and is like, "She's my friend," and that whole kind of thing. And he goes to save her when no one else will. So he does soften at a certain point, but he's still very much a departure from like the Kevin we've seen. So what would you
Yes,
like
yes.
to say?
I have a question.
Yes.
Um, how on earth can somebody not swim in Waterworld? You know what? There's a lot of little nitpick things I
Okay,
could have in this
well,
movie with this
I
sort of stuff.
took it as this girl has always been hidden. And so they're not gonna be out teaching her how to swim because they've been trying to hide her. Also, the fact that we do ultimately learn, spoiler alert, for Waterworld.
Spoilers for Waterworld. It's 20
Yes,
years old.
yeah. She is from land, so she's not gonna know how
That's
to so
true.
that's another kind of identifier to show you that this girl is actually from land.
But
So she
I'm
never
from
need had
land.
but she's a little girl, okay? I don't think I
I
learned how
could
to
swim
swim
when I
until
was.
I was maybe her age because I was afraid to. So, um,
But she lives in a world of water.
but she was taken from her world of land and put in the world of water. So I think it's just meant to be like this identifier that she's not from this place, and also maybe
Yeah,
just the fact that that she was meant to be kind of hidden away because of this map on her back, and nobody wanted her to be
yeah.
seen. So they're not gonna be out giving her swimming lessons where everybody can see her. So, with her little floaties
Here's
on.
your here's your 10-meter badge
Yeah,
for
with
today.
her
There
swim
you go.
diaper and her little floaties on, because I think they did she was given to whoever when she was in a basket, like a basket size per baby,
I mean,
so,
there you
you know
go, chosen one as well. I mean, who is she? All of a sudden, she's turned into Moses
yes,
and
leading the way,
leading the
leading the
people into the
people.
promised land
Yes,
and all this sort of stuff. Oh, for goodness
yes,
sake!
yes.
It is so chosen one, though, isn't it? I mean, it is so just there might as well be a large halo around the girl's head.
Yes, the child
It's
will
a
lead us. It's
shining lights,
allegory.
choral
Yeah.
singing, um, every time she moves or is looked at or anything like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm being overly cynical, maybe, which is
Maybe a little
weird.
bit.
Is weird considering we're in a Costner series and this isn't Costner at all, is it? He's wholesome. Um, but I don't know. I wanted a little bit more to just grab me about
Okay.
the Costner adjacent parts of the movie because
Yeah.
Costner does Costner's job perfectly nice. I enjoy him. He himself, thankfully, is definitely the best part of the movie. Apart from, I would have to say, just the impressive capability of shooting this much of a movie on
Yeah.
open water, which
Mhm.
definitely actually is the most impressive
Different
thing about
yes.
the entire
Yeah.
movie. It's stunning how it's like that. It is, like I said before, a very unique movie.
Mhm.
Because of that, I can think of what? Master and Commander that spent this much
Much
time
time out
on
on open water filming.
water,
Yes, but then you have to
and at
film
least
at
that was on a
night and
ship.
have some yeah, you have to film at night and have some type of lighting set up for some of these scenes, and, um, your character's constantly soaked, and, like, Kevin Costner looked like a lot of the diving and jumping and being on high things and, doing all these crazy stunts. It looked like a lot of it was him doing it, so
Oh,
I
yeah.
appreciated
I
that
would
as
imagine
well.
it was.
Yeah.
I I have another question.
Okay.
There's too many people are too dirty in this movie
to
for,
be.
again, living in a world of water
Yes,
where
but
you can just have a
seawater is
wash.
gross. Like
Sure.
if you go swim in seawater, you're still gonna have a shower because seawater is just nasty, and then you're in the hot sun on a boat with not really much shade. So yeah, people are gonna be kind of stinky.
But people
You
seem to
you
have
see the
dirt on
amount
them.
see the amount of piss he has to pee just to get a little bit of
I
fresh
mean,
water. Imagine how much piss
yeah,
he's gotta pee to have a bath. But I mean, when they got to the kind of the depot when, when he got captured, somebody said, "Oh, you got all that, money," well, I guess money, whatever, currency, you should
yeah.
pay for a bath. So, like, a bath is an option of a thing that you can pay to get.
And
So,
surely a bath is then just boiled seawater,
probably. I
to
mean,
get rid of the salt, I would
yes,
imagine.
unless they have a maybe a bigger filter type thing like his, because like, they were selling, jugs to him of fresh water. So, maybe
Yeah.
they have some type of filtration system. I don't
I
know.
do I mean, it is right what you brought up before, actually, and thinking about it a little bit more now. It is actually very, very good world building, isn't it? Because it doesn't beat you over the head with its world
Yeah,
building.
we still
It's
have
very
questions about it, but we can still just kinda go into it with our assumptions about how things work, and it doesn't take anything away from the world that we're in. We understand it enough. But we still have
yeah,
questions, but we don't they're questions that don't, pressingly need to be answered about understanding this world.
it's very matter of fact about
Mhm.
everything. It's very just it doesn't exposition dump you, and that's key as well. I think in a movie like this, I think when a movie like this does exposition dump you, not expedition.
Yeah.
We
And
are going on
and
an
went on an
expedition.
expedition. Yeah.
Um, when it does exposition dump you,
Yeah.
that's when I start to go, This
Mm,
movie's not very good, is it? This
yeah.
movie's just a bit too bleh." That's a
Yeah,
great
well, being a little
word I've just
lazy.
used
Yeah.
there. That's an actual word, by the way, and it's in
Bleh.
the dictionary. Look it up. Um, but this movie didn't do that. It's smarter than that, and
Yeah.
give it credit. And it wants those watching it to be smarter than that. It wants those watching it to fully get immersed in the world. And I think there's a difference between being immersed in the the world of Waterworld
Mhm.
and being gripped by it, because I felt immersed in it. I
Mhm.
felt like I was learning the ways of things, learning how lunatic Dennis Hopper, and please let's talk about him soon
Oh,
because I love
yeah.
him in these roles so much. He's so perfect in these
Yes.
absolutely unhinged maniac
Villains. Yeah.
villain roles in some sort of wasteland movie. He's just absolutely. I seem to remember him in George Romero's Land of the Dead, which is,
Oh.
one of the
Mhm.
George Romero zombie movies. I think that's mid 2000s, 2005 ish, and
And
he's
then
like a major
Speed,
villain in
of
that.
course.
Speed, of course, and
Yeah, Brice
God,
holding
let's
his phone.
he's
Drives me
across
nuts
his face for
across his
some reason.
face. Yeah.
Um, obviously as well, if we, you know, Blue Velvet. If you're going
Oh,
Dennis
yeah,
Hopper
eccentric
unhinged
kind of.
villains,
Yeah,
there's not
just like
too many more unhinged villains
yeah,
than Frank. Whatever is he? Frank somebody? What's his last name? For God's
in
sake,
that
he's
movie.
called
Oh,
Frank. He's
yeah.
definitely
And he
called
has, like,
Frank.
the crazy breathing thing that he has to
Yeah, the oxygen mask.
yeah.
Very, very unsettling. But Dennis Hopper's great at doing that.
Yes, and he's
And
having a
I'm
good
very.
time, and
Oh,
you
of course
appreciate
he
that
is.
when you can tell someone is just going for it and having fun, being this kind of prophet, this evil kind of mastermind, and everyone kind of following his lead and thinking he's
Yeah,
going to be the one to save them kind of thing. He's definitely having a good time with that.
it's the pure good versus pure evil of a chosen one movie,
Yes, and
and
your
he is
reluctant
very
hero
much.
thrown in there, having to kind
Yeah.
of mediate the situation. Yeah.
Exactly, while going through his own troubles because he's slightly different than
And
everybody
everyone and
else.
yeah, and this reluctance comes from the prejudice, like, why am I gonna help these humans? They've only ever treated me like a monster. So why would
They've
I go
literally
out of
now
my
got me
way?
hung up in a wood cage, about to
Yeah,
be
about to go into some
essentially
sludge water stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, all because I won't.
essentially executed.
Yes. And, like, what kind of starts the whole chaos is because they want him to breed with a young girl so that they can, like, build out their population, and when he
Right?
says no, they stop him and then see that he's a mutant. So,
Yeah.
yeah, just another kind of world building thing that gets thrown in there that, okay, yeah, these people can only populate with different people so much with the amount of people that are there before it starts getting incestuous. So, hey, new guy just coming into town, could you do us a favor? Kind of thing. Yeah.
As much as you can call this small trading post we spend the majority of the first or third of the movie
hmm
in a town, I don't think we.
I
I mean,
mean,
I suppose if Waterworld has towns, this would be a
well, I mean, the fact
town.
that they even have like a sheriff almost, like an enforcer to kind of keep the
Yeah,
peace kind
that's
of
true.
guy. So that just had me like in the mindset of a town. So
Or people
um
will always try, even in dystopian situations, wastelands that this is, people, humanity will still try and create some
a
semblance of
civilization.
civilization.
Yes. We do also see some familiar faces from Open Range appearing in this film. So just I guess frequent collaborators Costner likes to have in his films. So we did have the villainous guy who was one of the kind of enforcers of Michael Gambon in
Yes.
this as a they do have these shipping rules. So if you pass another ship, you kind of have to stop and try to like parlay a trade situation. So he plays
Yeah.
a kind of kooky guy who is able to try to make a trade that ultimately is a really gross guy. uh a-
Yes.
and then we get our friendly kind of ranch hand guy who was in Open Range as well, who ended up kind of helping them in that film, also being a good character here as well. So I appreciate
Yeah.
that they kept him being kind of a good, helpful ally character in this movie. Is playing so the both of these characters end up playing similar. Either these actors end up playing similar characters to what they played in Open Range. So
I mean, it
um
is nice when that sort of stuff
yeah,
does happen.
when you see that someone likes to work with people, it speaks a lot about that. So yeah, it was kind of interesting to see. "Oh, okay, he's working with these guys again. I like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, as the movie goes on, I think I almost become more interested in what on earth Dennis Hopper's gonna do than what Costner and his little band of okay, I'm gonna help you, let's go and find
Yeah,
land. Does land actually exist?
but
Costner
he's doing
Costner
this. Not he's
does
kind of keeping that close to the vest of what he believes to be true about land.
he is treating it as in himself, he's treating it as a bit of a myth, but he's very much telling people land still does exist. I have seen land. It's a long, I mean, it's a ridiculously long
Yeah,
voyage away, but it is there. And if you go far enough, you will be able to find it. But he's lying to these people and
yeah,
to himself at this point because it comes out a little ways into the movie in rather unfortunately explosive fashion for Costner. We don't like to see Costner
yeah.
shout. Um, that he does truly believe that land is just now a myth. There's
Completely.
no
It's co Yeah, that the land is completely submerged under the water, so he does take Jean Triplehorn down there, and we see buildings and
yeah,
the because when he went to that outpost where he found her, he traded with a bunch of, like, land dirt, and so they're like, "How did he get this dirt?" So it's dirt that he collected from under the water, which was land dirt. Now it's like sea dirt. But you see all these buildings and cars and kind of everything that
Yeah.
Earth was, cities were, now all submerged underwater. So he's like, it existed, but it doesn't exist in a way that we can live in it or see it. And so
Yeah, which
that's where he gets all his like artifacts from that time. And so people think he's seen land because he's picking all of these things that he gets from the land that is under the sea.
it does make you wonder how it does make you wonder if he is actually the one intelligent person in the entire world, or is this just the nature of him being a Gillman mutant? It might
I
just be the
mean,
nature of him being a Gillman mutant. He's actually able to dive appropriately down
yes, and
and
go and
see.
see what's down there. So I mean, yeah, that gives him a kind of a leg up on getting to see what's down there. No one else is going to be able to go down there. And I'm wondering if there were any really others like him for them to know what he was, because like, they immediately were able to kinda clock him as a
Yeah,
specific thing, so it
we don't
makes
get
me feel
in the movie.
like yeah, we don't get an explanation as to, like, were there more people like him that were mutated? Like, where did he come from? Obviously, the Earth that we know existed at one point in time, so how did he evolve into this thing? So they don't really get into a lot of that, which I kind of maybe would have liked to. I mean, the movie still works without it, but considering, like, the discrimination of this character is a developmental thing that, sets up the character to step into being this hero despite what people think of him and all and getting over,
Yeah.
dealing with the prejudices of people. I would have liked to maybe understand, like, how he was able to adapt, if it was something with some chemical thing also happening to create this world or something. So that was one thing that I felt like they could have maybe gone into a little bit. It still worked without it, but I kind of wish we maybe would have gotten more of an explanation because how the people react to him make it feel like they've encountered these others kind of before and have then built their prejudice off of that.
I don't yeah, I do agree with you. I don't disagree at all there, but perhaps this was meant for Waterworld 2: The Return of Water, and that obviously never happened because, oh, we can't be spending that much money on
No,
a
it's
movie that isn't
insane.
uber
Yeah.
successful, anymore. We're never doing that again. I mean, let's bring it up again, though. It's not put Costner off putting a lot of money into massive movie projects in his future, has it?
No.
Hint, hint, the current one
Yes.
that we've been bringing up constant, or I've been bringing up
Yes.
constantly
No,
throughout
we're
the
excited
entire
for it, I think.
series. Yeah, I mean, it's got great praise from Cannes as well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Horizon. So it does. It's very, very exciting. Maybe he just needs it to all be him. Maybe he's kind of one of these people. If it's all his money, he's making it, he's in it.
He can kind of
It's all on
put
him.
into
Then
it what
he
he
doesn't have
wants.
anybody to
Yeah.
argue with.
Yeah.
On
And I
Waterworld,
think
he obviously
and I
had
wanna
someone to
say
argue with.
he kinda said that, like, he had done a recent kinda GQ breakdown of his career, and I think he said as much that he likes kind of being able to be a big proponent in creating the project because then he can answer to, you know, himself and what he's doing and what he's not doing and kind of
Yeah.
navigate it in that way. So I think he almost prefers that and probably works better in that type of condition and can maybe add things that develop things more. Um, and so
I mean,
maybe that just
I do kind of get that mindset of it's kind of any success you have, is yours, and any failure you have, it's yours. So you have to change something in yourself. Like this
yeah.
is all kind of always the thing in a sports sense, which is odd how Costner obviously loves baseball so much, a
Yeah.
very team-based sport where very much all areas of the team have to do very
Their part.
specific and very much
Yeah.
their own things. It's not even like coming together as a group.
Yeah.
You all get your chance to do your one thing, and if you don't do that, it
Then
could
it's
be
on
chaos.
you. Yeah, and mess up everyone else's thing. Yeah.
Although maybe that is why Costner likes baseball, because it's perhaps one of the most individualistic team sports.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe.
Never thought
Maybe.
about
I'm
that.
now philosophizing of
About Kevin
why.
Costner's thought process in
Yeah.
analyzing film. But
It
yeah, no,
makes you
like that.
wonder
But
though.
yeah, but I mean, even that GQ interview with him, it was really nice to see and understand how he views film and his perspective and what he wants to bring to movies and what he wants to give to movies and that whole kind of thing. Like he has a really great mentality on filmmaking, I think. And I think that's why we've enjoyed watching him so much. And, you know, despite this movie really kind of being this big bombastic thing, but having a very simple plot, he still does his Kevin Costner thing and grounds it in a way for
Yeah.
us, like he's done with everything else. So
I mean, that's
despite
why
kind
we've
of
not
the
spent.
yeah, and talking about him specifically and talking about the world of this film, but he still is the element that kind of brings it all together.
Yeah.
Um,
But that is why what you've just said is why we've spent this episode not going through the plot of the movie as we
yeah,
somewhat often
usually
do
do,
on
yeah.
Morgan Hasn't Seen, because we can't really do that. It's too straightforward
Yeah.
to do that. What
And we've
is the
kind of
more
generally said it, like, with our just kind of like,
yeah,
yeah, chosen one, reluctant hero,
going
maniacal
quest to
villain
find
who's
land.
yes, who's kind of this messiah for the people, you know, that whole kind of thing going in on a expedition. Like, that's basically it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't that is it's so far away from what is the most
Yeah.
interesting aspects about this movie. Yeah, okay, all the production stuff. Sure, but there is in-world interesting things going on within Waterworld that does make me, a little bit disappointed it perhaps didn't do better and led to more things surrounding Waterworld. I mean, now we've got 5 Mad Max movies now,
Yeah,
really, haven't
and we
we?
only have one Waterworld.
We only have
Um,
one Waterworld, and it's so similar. It's just dust or water.
water,
What do you want?
yeah. Yeah, and
And
I
the
mean
first Mad Max, let's not forget the first Mad Max is like so really not that dystopian either.
yeah.
It like Mad Max still has a house in that movie, and really it's only just like, oh, this part of Australia has biker
It is
gangs.
yeah,
Yeah, okay, it builds and builds and builds, and
builds to them to be more what
Thunderdome,
we kind of
Fury
think
Road, what
of.
have you. Uh,
Yes.
it gets a bit crazy, but
Yeah,
the first movie is so less dystopian
then
than
people kind of think
Waterworld
about it,
is.
yeah.
The first Mad Max movie. You wonder how that was able to create what it created,
Yeah,
but the story of Waterworld wasn't. And I know it's to do with the finances, and I know it's all that kind of stuff, and that's the boring side of it, but you just wish it did, because I actually think it's a better first movie, or a better world introducing movie than the first Mad Max is, ultimately being the same kind of thing.
concept, yeah. Um, but also, like, it doesn't surprise me that this movie ended up creating this whole big stunt show at Universal because I'm watching this
No,
movie, I'm watching the sets and the guys flying around and the jet ski stunts, and I'm like, "This feels
it's
like
very good.
it feels like a stunt show." Like,
It
just
do, but
watching it.
it works as that. The
Yeah.
huge action sequences in this movie are really,
And
really
to do all
great
of
to
that on
watch.
water, they're really fun, they're bombastic, they're things like you've never seen before. So yeah, it was really exciting those action moments and practical action as well, which is, you know, anything practical is just kind of a joy to see because we don't
Yeah,
really get to see it anymore.
very,
Practical
very,
makeup
very
and
practical.
stunts and people flying and explosions and people on fire and like all that kind of stuff. It's really fun to watch. And so kind of equating this to the stunt show, I'm like, I get why they would have created, despite this movie having this whole kind of reputation of being a bomb and da 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 da,
Yeah.
this theme park is going to make a big stunt show around it because that aspect of it was so well done and interesting and unique to be doing it on water and everything else. So
I mean, it does make you wonder as well, and I have to assume that the simple answer is yes, this is absolutely why. Does Waterworld contribute significantly to the real increase of CG use for locations, backgrounds, action stuff that you would see from the mid late 90s, and I mean constantly within your movie, not just for a few scenes or for one
yeah.
particular character or something like that that you might get before. Obviously, something like Jurassic Park would intermingle between the two.
Yeah.
But once you hit, late 90s, you are getting entire worlds
World's
created
CG. Yeah.
within
Yeah.
CG and a real person in the middle of it all. And obviously that's continued and gone back and forth between let's do it real, let's not do it real, it's cheaper to not
Yeah.
do it real, let's do it real again. And it's
Yeah, because I
always that
think they
kind of thing.
only in this film, they only went to tanks and studios, stages and things like that when they had to do research reshoots or they didn't were kinda running out of money to
Well, yeah,
film
but that's still
that they
real.
couldn't, or that there was like, weather situations. So
Yeah.
that was the only time they kind of moved to, like, a green screen and a sound stage and that kind of thing, but most of it they've tried to do as practical as possible despite how difficult it was.
Which is why I'm thinking, and my question was, does Waterworld and its stigma directly result in the increase of CG use for
Maybe.
locations?
Yeah,
Because
it's
they're all
cheaper,
thinking, we can't be spending that much
all this
money
kinda
on
money, yeah,
just for
with
that. We can make that with computers now.
yes,
You
with and
can't make
without
it
the
look as good. We know you can't make it look as good. It's
yeah.
never been able to look as good, but people will think we can make that for so much cheaper.
Cheaper if we just do it all with green screen and all of these things and,
In
we
fact,
don't
I
have to
tell a lie. The only time it actually does look this good, fair play to them, is Avatar. It's the only time in a totally CG location
I
actually
mean,
looks good. The
fair,
two
fair point,
Avatar movies,
fair
both of them,
point.
to be fair, especially the second one in terms of the visuals.
Yeah,
The only time a fully CG world, because obviously with real humans sometimes within it,
mixed in with these kind of computer generated
actually
or
looks,
motion captured characters, it still looks incredibly
yeah,
real.
actually
Yeah,
looks the equivalent to a real location
yeah,
when it's clearly not.
yeah,
You need it to look as good as Waterworld does look, because if there's
being
one thing that
real.
is great
Yeah.
about Waterworld, it just looks phenomenal.
Yeah, you feel like you're in the middle of the ocean in the hot sun and kind of dealing with the elements that the characters are dealing with. So you feel very immersed in the world. I think it is a good thing as well about Waterworld that you really feel like you're in it. And
Yeah,
we do actually get a really interesting movie trailer guy voiceover at the beginning of the movie explaining the world, which I'm like,
we
"Am I
do.
playing?" 'Cause
This is
I
another weird thing.
for a minute, because I haven't watched this movie in a long time. So for a minute, I was like, Wait, did I click watch the trailer for this movie?" Like, I literally thought I hit the wrong button because if you're streaming, it gives you the option to watch the trailer or whatever. I thought I had hit that option because I don't recall too many situations where the trailer voice guy is used as the film's narrator. Like, you either have, like, a character
No.
doing it or, like, somebody that we'll see in the movie doing it, but
Well, We could have had Costner do it, but we know what
right?
his history with narration's
His
like.
narration is very, "Well, I'm just a guy doing a guy things," and like, he's very and he was also
Honestly,
trying to
I'm
do a bit of an
sure
accent with the Mariner as well, so to do a whole kind
a
of
a little bit, yeah,
so to do a whole monologue like that, I don't know, with his
but
little accent he was
think
trying.
I
Ooh.
mean, okay, but I'm sure I've said it on this series already. This series has been a long series, I forget what I've
Yes.
said, but Kevin Costner's narration in Dances with Wolves makes the movie so great. I don't know how it should take you out. By all logic, it should take you out of the movie completely. But somehow, because maybe because the movie is just about a guy trying to get on with new people, ultimately, that he doesn't fully understand. The fact that the narration is so average Joe normal man
Yeah.
is so perfect to me. They went to the buffalo today and I saw a beautiful buffalo. It was very large and there were 10 of them, in fact, on top of this hill on the east side of the plain. They have given me a new name, Dances with Wolves. It's delivered
Yes,
like that.
and it's the same delivery he kind of gives in his narration for Field of Dreams, where he's kind of throwing dad jokes in there. It's very kind of straightforward, a little bit dry,
It could
but
put you to sleep.
it somehow works. Like, it's weird. Like, I don't know. That's like that was always kind of our enigma of Kevin Costner. He's not doing very much. He's not emoting in any kind of insane way, even when he's monologuing or giving narration, but somehow we enjoy it and it somehow works and we always like his character. Like, he always makes doing kind of the same thing in everything work for whatever movie he's in. It's weird, but great.
It
Like,
is
we
weird.
love him for that.
It is so weird. I mean, is there much else we would like to actually say about Waterworld? Do you wanna get into a bit more of the Smokers? Do you like the Smokers
Yes.
as a biker gang,
I
jet
think they
ski
work
gang?
as kind of this villainous, entity. They have the look and, like, when they were playing that Blues Brothers music for them, like,
Oh,
that was
oh, thank you very much for
what was
reminding me of
that?
this towards the beginning of the movie.
It was a
I think it
choice.
was just before the Smokers show up for the first time to kind of
Well, we're in their, like, lair, and, I think after they've
is
done
that where
the
we
I
are
I
when it
wanna say
is?
it was the attack on the outpost, and now we've gone back to kind of their lair with them,
Possibly,
and
quite
and they're
possibly is.
they're just kinda running around doing their thing, uh,
But
you know.
somehow, s I don't it
Do
doesn't
do
make
do
sense
do
at
do do
all.
do 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 do. That's what's playing. Like,
Why
what?
the hell is Henry Mancini's music from the Blues Brothers playing at random point in war? That's what spoils the whole movie. If anything
Yeah, it
spoils
was a
the whole
little
movie, it doesn't
that
make any
was odd.
sense at
That was an
all.
odd choice for sure. I guess
If
it's
this
just a
movie's gonna have a good score to it, I think it's gotta be entirely wood instruments because there's a lot of wood going on in this movie. So
yeah,
why not make the music feel like the visuals of the movie? Have it all
yeah.
be kind of marimbas and things like that, or um, wood whistles and panpipes and things like that. They're all
Yeah,
made of wood.
yes,
Um,
but
not not Henry Mancini's thing from the Blues Brothers,
yeah,
which
it
is
was
a
a
great piece of music. It
yes,
is.
it was just a bit of a jarring thing kind of thrown out there. But yeah, I mean, I think they work as this menacing entity to set up our villains for our world. Um and obviously when Dennis Hopper loses his eye and now he has an eye patch, at
Yes,
sea, it's like,
we do
oh,
like that.
we've made our villain even more menacing. We didn't really talk too much about Jean Triplehorn as well, and
No,
her character.
we
You
should.
know, we do develop a bit of, of course, an antagonistic relationship is the beginning stages of her and the Mariner, but ultimately spending time together, understanding each other, and um, her actually kind of not treating him like other humans treat him,
Yeah,
a
being
love
nice
story.
to him, he
Yeah, so a love story kind of brews between the two of them.
shock.
Also, seeing him kind of, be kind and teach Tina Majorino how to swim and all of that, she's just like, "Oh, he's good with kids, eh?" kind of thing. Uh, so,
There's another
uh
point. Nobody should be having children in Waterworld.
no, well, they wanted him to just mate with some lady and make some
It shouldn't be the case. It's my exact same problem with A Quiet Place. Nobody should be having children in
in
that
this
world.
time,
Why?
yeah.
Why are you doing it?
Why are you
What
doing
an
it? You gotta keep your
idiotic
kid in a
idea.
box with an oxygen tank because that's what you yeah,
And why is somebody in why are people in Waterworld even
procreating.
thinking about children and procreation?
Yeah.
It just why are you doing it at that point?
Yeah.
What are you living for in such a world? You're struggling every minute of every day.
Yeah, just to
You have
find
to
food and fresh water and just
you
trying to
have to
live and
urinate
yeah.
in a filter to drink it. You then have to
Yeah,
use half of
that's how
that
we're introduced.
swill water to water the tiny little failing plant you've somehow got from somewhere.
Yeah, and that's how we're actually introduced to Kevin Costner, by the way, like, shot
It
of him
is,
just being into a cup.
yeah,
Um,
which is an unusual choice for the first shot of the
yes,
movie.
yes.
Um, but yeah, there's another tiny little just issue that I have. I think about the logic of the
Okay,
people
okay.
within Waterworld itself, not the movie, just the
The
actual
people.
population of
Okay.
Waterworld. Um, why are you even having children? Unless obviously
Yeah.
we're in a situation where we've turned into real nasty dystopia and people are forcing people to have children with each other in very uncomfortable
Maybe because
scenarios.
they just don't want the population to die out. I mean,
Yeah.
but,
More
um,
people for my army eventually and that sort of
maybe, like,
mentality.
yes, especially when they have the smokers kind of lurking around trying to almost being kind of these outlaws to maybe take
Yeah.
things from them, and they need to protect themselves and, have more numbers, I guess. Because yeah, like, another thing that's kind of not really explained,
There's a lot that's actually not
not
explained.
explained.
Is Waterworld actually a good movie or is it just a pretty movie?
We come to the end of this and decided, actually,
It might not make a lot of sense at all. It might just look really
they
great.
yes, they set up, I think, the world enough that you get into it, you understand, okay, this is the world we're in now. Everything's underwater. There's some people who have this hope out there for land, but it's not really a believed thing. We have our kind of shipping rules with ships passing. We have our outposts. We have our bad guys that we need to look out for. So, they generally set things up, but they do end up kind of leaving you with a lot of questions. But you can still
Yeah.
understand, get into the movie. Again, Kevin Costner being this grounding force. Um, I think helping you focus on what you need to focus on and not ask these questions until you maybe sat after the movie when you've sat with it for a little bit.
It's actually quite a bad movie
Because yeah,
to if
while
you
you're in
enjoy the
it,
movie.
but I think while I was in it, I wasn't really thinking about all that stuff. But now in kind of talking about it and having sat with it, now I'm like asking the question. So I think it's better that the movie kind of like distracts you with a bunch of things and you're kind of into it. So you're not thinking too much about the things that they left out, I
I
guess.
stand by my original point that it is better than its stigma. It is
Yes,
much better
that is
than its
a
stigma.
definite fair point, I'd say.
Um, I just think it's a poor movie to do a long form discussion on because it'll make you realise that
Maybe.
actually There's a lot that's lacking in Waterworld, actually, somehow.
But you also have
Um,
to commend it for how it was made, what it was trying to do, it being kind of not like anything else. I mean, in terms of just filming on the sea for that extended period of time and kind of trying to
yeah.
create this world that exists on the sea. So I mean, there's a lot there to enjoy, a lot there to respect and applaud.
Oh, there
Um,
is, absolutely. The
a lot to
actual
have fun with, but ultimately there were some things lacking from the whole execution, I think, but I definitely don't think it deserves to have this moniker as a big bomb and a
no,
failure, because this
no.
movie was definitely trying to do something creative, and I think it succeeded in
It
giving us something we've never seen before.
100% we should absolutely commend it for that because it succeeds at doing that and deserves to be applauded for that. I just don't think they think the story through enough
Yeah.
and the little things through enough. Perhaps though, because we haven't, of course, watched it, the Ulysses cut maybe sorts all these little things out.
Yeah, I
We
think in the
don't know. We have
Ulysses
to
cut
throw that out there.
yes, I think that cut really delves more into, um, giving more weight to his decision to ultimately go and rescue the little girl.
Okay.
He does it in a different timeline and for different kind of reasonings. Like he does it before, like, I think he knows whether he believes that land is real or not in one version, and then in the version we saw, like, he kind of sees that, this tree on this magazine is the same thing that she
Yeah.
drew, so we know that she, in fact, has seen land and knows that land is real. So, he's kind of doing it for different reasonings. I think mostly the Ulysses Cut just kind of changes his motivation in when he decides to kind of, do for humans despite how they treat him.
So entirely Mariner focused and not at all, returning to
The
the
Yeah,
logic of the people of Waterworld that doesn't
yeah,
have that is totally illogical. I see. Right. Well,
yeah.
never mind about that then. Um, it's it's interesting. It's is it tough to know where to put Waterworld on a ranking of this series?
Yes,
I think we're at that stage of the show. Are we at that stage of the
yes,
show?
you do your rankings of the Kevin Costner films that you have not
I
seen.
think look, we had The Bodyguard, we
Yes,
had, A Perfect World,
yes,
we had Open Range, we had
yes,
Mr. Brooks, and we
and
had
Waterworld.
Waterworld. And I have said it earlier in this as well. I wasn't as gripped by Waterworld as I wanted to be, and I felt I was with those other movies. I think it has to go at 5. And
Okay.
I'll say it again, I'll reiterate for people that aren't listening properly, although I'm sure you're all listening properly. We love you, you're the best. Um, it's better than its stigma. It's
Yes.
much better than its stigma. It deserves to be watched, it deserves to be commended and celebrated. It's just not quite as good a movie as the other movies we have watched for this Kevin Costner series. I
Yeah,
do
I
not
would
think.
agree. I would agree.
It has to go at 5 for me. Now, this is where it gets very interesting indeed.
Okay.
Because we're talking about 4 very different movies and 4 pretty different Costners
Yeah.
as well. Evil Costner, Western Costner, rugged but tender Costner,
Yeah.
and prim and proper perfect Costner. Who do we prefer? Do we go by which Costner you prefer or which
I
movie you
mean,
prefer?
or which
Or is
movie?
it
I mean,
too separate? Is it too separate?
are you gonna have a separate Costner ranking and a separate
No, I don't
separate
think I can. I don't,
too much?
that's too much thought. I can't do that. Number 1 is Perfect World. Number
Oh,
1 is A Perfect
wow.
World.
Okay.
Number 2 is Open Range.
course, you picked the Western.
And that's more so for the whole movie because
Yeah.
I think it's less Costner than the other movies, really. The Bodyguard, which again we might think is the Whitney Houston movie, is more Costner's movie than Open
Yeah.
Range. Open
Yeah.
Range is Robert Duvall's movie.
Yeah.
But Open Range as a movie, I think, has to go 2. Then is it The Bodyguard or Mr. Brooks? 2 very, very different movies and
Different.
very, very
Yes.
different Costners. Which would I go and watch again tomorrow? The Bodyguard, because of Whitney
Yes.
and the music
And
and
the chemistry between the two of them was really good,
chemistry.
and you also wouldn't expect them to have good chemistry, but, like, it works really well and,
So I
because they're
think
kind
Mr.
of
Brooks has to go at 4.
okay. Oh,
I
interesting.
think that is the ranking there, but it might change if I'm actually going for preferred Costner because maybe
Which
Perfect
Costner did you
World
like the best? Okay,
because rugged but tender. We like that.
okay,
Bodyguard, I think, then goes to 2.
okay. Because he's kinda still rugged but tender in that too.
He is, yeah. And then maybe even Waterworld goes to 3 because
Wow.
he's rough in this movie.
You like
He's
a rough
rough in
Costner.
Waterworld. I like a rough Costner, but then does Mr. Brooks not come to that? Because is he just more just mentally disturbed? He's not really rough, is he? He's
No,
very put
no.
together.
Yeah, little bow
Um,
tie.
and then Open Range is great though, isn't it? That's tough. That's very hard.
Yeah.
Maybe at that point, Mr. Brooks is going for bottom of Costner, of
Yeah,
the
because
actual
he's
preferred style of Costner, even though I thought that was very good. It was a welcome, different role for
change,
Costner.
yeah.
This is just this series, by the way. If we're going like prime Costner for absolute Costner, it's got
Yes.
to be Field of Dreams. It
Dreams, yeah.
has to be Field of
It
Dreams.
it it
'Cause
embodies everything we love about him as an actor. He's getting to do everything he does well and being that everyman that we kind of see him as, so,
yeah,
but and that's kind of the inspiration behind doing this series because there were so many that we kind of realized you hadn't seen from him after we did Field of Dreams,
yeah.
so, yeah, I
You
hope
want to
you
give a
enjoyed.
little ranking? Would you agree with my
Um,
ranking?
yes, Perfect World is my favorite. Then I would go The Bodyguard. Just very entertaining, love the chemistry between him and Whitney, liked that
Yes.
story. She did a great job kind of her first time out, so as a movie, really enjoyed, obviously I'm a romance girly as well. Um, 3,
It's
Open
tough, right?
Range.
See, you
Open
get me to do
Range.
this every season.
Yes. I
I'm
have to go
getting you
Open
to do
Range.
this.
I actually, for me, it would be kind of really just between that and Mr. Brooks because Mr. Brooks was just a really surprising departure.
Yeah.
But a movie that I feel like I would revisit more and really got into, especially as, like, I always kind of put this stigma on myself that, like, I don't really like Westerns, but I think I do kinda like Westerns. I like the kind of few against the few good against the evil kinda thing. I really love that, and I love seeing the bad guys get their comeuppance and, like, all of that kinda thing. So,
You
yeah.
mean I get the impression you're very much going to enjoy our June main show series.
Yes, I'm excited for that. Um, so yes, I would go with Open Range, and then Mr. Brooks and yeah, Waterworld.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. So you're just literally switching
The
Waterworld.
Bodyguard
You're switching The Bodyguard and Open
and
Range,
Open
aren't you?
Range.
For mine.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I like that.
We did actually have on, YouTube somebody who answered some of our questions from Spotify. I made a little video sharing what our
Oh,
Spotify
yes.
questions were for this Kevin Costner series. So our good, supporter, Vulcanerd, who
Yes.
watches all of our YouTube things and loves to leave us great comments, when I asked the question about, French films when we did cover, that on the main show,
Yeah.
uh, I think that was after we
Restless.
covered Breathless in our A World Cinema series. They mentioned that they loved Amelie. So that would have been
Amelie's a
their
great
pick
movie.
for favorite French film. And in this Kevin Costner series, they did mention they weren't too big of a fan of Westerns, and they hadn't really seen all the Kevin Costner's Westerns, but they do really enjoy Dances with Wolves, so
Well, when we actually think about it, Kevin Costner has actually only made 4 westerns, one of which
yeah.
is yet to come out to the public.
Yes.
So there's literally only Silverado, Dances with Wolves, and Open Range to go off, unless you
Go
want to go with
yeah.
Yellowstone TV show, um, which, yeah, okay, is kind of modern western, isn't it? I suppose.
Yes, but they did really love A Perfect World, so, I mean, if you kinda, just see, the
It's
Clint
a little
Eastwood
bit,
Clint Eastwood in a cowboy hat, it's
eh,
Western.
it's a little bit western. It's sure it's got a little bit of a western
Yes.
tendency
Yeah.
to it. Dances with
Yes.
Wolves is great, as
Yes.
I am a big fan of Dances with Wolves.
Yes. So, yes, we do put these questions for every episode of both of our shows on Spotify, on the Spotify release. So you can go there and answer the questions there, and we'll share the answers on an episode. But I'm also sharing those questions from Spotify on our YouTube stories on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. So you can, if you want to know what
Yes,
they are and YouTube is more your vibe, you can check them out there and answer the questions in the comments there, or even on my TikTok at Jeannine to be. And,
of
we will read the questions out on episodes of the show. So,
we
yeah.
certainly would. Thank you, of course, to Vulcan Nerd for
Yes.
constant responding
Being
to our
supporting and
questions.
responding and leaving comments.
No,
We do appreciate
very
engaging
nice.
with you.
Very nice person. Very nice person. Um, yes, I think that's going to do it for the Costner series. It's a
Yeah.
sad time. I feel like I've spent so much time with Costner and just want to continue spending time with
Well,
Costner.
next year we may have to do a part 2. I mean, unless you
I
decide to
am
go watch all
definitely
his
going to
movies.
watch
No, don't do it.
100%. I'm going to go and watch the rest of them that I haven't seen way before
No,
you can even
wait, wait.
try.
You gotta wait.
No,
Hold out, hold
no,
out.
no,
I'm
no, not doing it.
No, there's far too many other things you gotta watch. Come on.
There might be, but even if I just watch like 2 or 3 of them, there's then not enough to do an entire series
No.
of.
No.
So, success,
You're
dancing
gonna forget.
about,
You're gonna
success
forget.
for
It's fine.
me,
I know you.
Costner.
You'll forget to do it. It's fine.
Oh, thanks for having faith in me. You're so nice, aren't you?
Mm,
But no, it does. It feels like I've spent a lot of time with Costner,
yeah, I
and I
think we
don't kind
really
of.
have a great respect for him and really enjoy him as an actor and what he's able to do and his mentality about film and,
Yeah,
the fact
as
that
a
he's just
person, he's just so likable,
yeah,
I think, as
yeah,
well. He
100%.
really is. There we go. Kevin Costner series done and done. We're back with a fun new series, of course, next
Yes.
month, next week on Morgan Hasn't Seen. Go over to the social medias to find out what that is, of
Ooh.
course. We'd like to do big announcement posts and little shorts and things like this as well. When we are announcing new series, there's obviously, well, at the time this goes out, there will still be polls available to vote in for next month's video episode as well,
Yes.
which obviously encapsulate the Morgan Hasn't Seen series and the main show series and battle them off against each other in a
Yes.
bracket to whittle them down to a winner that this month, of course, was Waterworld. That's why we were here today. Hello. So yeah, that they might still be live, but if they're not live by the time you're getting to watch this, you can go on over to It's a Wonderful One on the app formerly known as Twitter anyway, and see what won. See what's going to be next month's video episode, and see what our June series are going to include. Because on this show, we have black female leads, and on the
Yes.
main show, we have spaghetti westerns.
Wow.
Yes, I want plenty of that, please, all June on the main show, Jeannine. Just constant Morricone screeching, please.
Yes.
You, all the time. Absolutely perfect. Costner, we love you.
We do.
Subscribe, ding the notification bell on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel if you are here watching this show today. Subscribe wherever you do get your podcasts, of course, on the It's a Wonderful Podcast feed on all major podcast platforms. For Monday Madness, starting the week right every Monday. This show every Wednesday. Main show, It's a Wonderful Podcast itself every Friday, celebrating old movies and discovering new ones like we love to do over there. If you want to support us on Patreon, of course, or donate in any way, there are links in the description of this episode to go and do that. We would love you forever, much like we love people like Vulcaner.
Yes.
And we do. We can't get away from that. I've said it too many times now. People will think I'm having some sort of illicit affair with Kevin Costner. I'm not.
It's not a bad thing. Let him think that.
Imagine if that came out. I mean, I'm not. I'd like to point out it's not happening. Imagine if that came out. What would you do? What would your reaction be?
I would low key.
I would low key
be impressed, Morgan. Not gonna lie.
I would be quite impressed as well. I mean, how I would. I don't.
You just
don't even go
you
that way.
Together by the appreciation of your facial hairs.
He does have a very nice mustache.
Mustache at the moment, yeah.
Costner. Yeah, he does. I'm not, unfortunately. Is it unfortunate? I'm not sexually attracted to Kevin Costner. It's just not.
You are attracted to him, just not sexually attracted to him.
As a person, I am attracted to. I think
that's fair
as person-to-person vibe attraction towards Kevin Costner.
Yes.
We'll stick with that.
Yes.
I've forgotten what I was talking about.
We are saying goodbye.
I feel all flushed. Don't know why.
Heat over Kevin Costner.
Isn't it funny when I take a joke way too
far?
Always. At It's a Wonderful One on the app formerly known as Twitter. You can find me there at the Purple Dome with the 3 instead of the E in the because, Jeannine.
3 is a magic number.
On Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at the Purple Dome. All your Costner loving, but not as much as me stuff is where.
You can find me at Jeannine __ on Twitter, Jeannine on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. If you want to get any merch for any of our shows, just check the description for the link or search It's a Wonderful Podcast on teespring.com. And if you want to purchase any of my art in print form, you can find that at my Big Cartel shop, g9design.bigcartel.com.
There we go. That is going to do it. There is only one thing left to do. Jeannine, please, 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 please. Costner narration to end us out for the countdown.
Well, I hope you really enjoyed this series. And it was a great all-American series with me, Kevin Costner. 3, 2, 1.
Bye.
You were way better at it than I was.